Alright, here we are with our third video of the day. Now, I am recording this about 10:30 at night, and this probably will not be uploaded until tomorrow. So happy Memorial Day. Hopefully you checked out my Most Fearful Sacrifice videos. If not, here we are with 2 minutes to midnight. This is a game that I backed on Kickstarter, like Most Fearful Sacrifice, and I've been looking forward to this one for almost a year, I think. So let's talk about it. So this is an overview of the game, and we are going to play through the tutorial. This is my second go through, but I just wanted to kind of look at everything, and then I'll set us up on the tripod here, so I don't have to hold this in my hand. So this is published by Plague Island Games, which is a nice little nickname for the United Kingdom. Designer is Stuart Tong, probably said that wrong, apologies, whose other game is Blue Water Navy, which is a game I liked a lot. So when I saw this, this looked cool, and it's another Cold War / World War III-ish, not really. So I like the theme, so I was like, alright, I'm in. Alright, so let's take a look. So this is 2 minutes to midnight, and it covers the Cold War period from about 46 all the way up to the collapse of the Soviet Union. And I guess the elephant in the room, is, the comparison to Twilight Struggle. I can assure you that apart from the subject matter, they're really, they're two different games. So don't worry about that. But how do you win? Well, if you have more of these guys here, and I'll say, I really do love the components here. So you have a hammer and sickle and a star, or there are counters that you could use as well. And if you look across the board, okay, so here's like an occupation counter. We also have these wonderful wooden components we could use instead. Occupation, unrest, or they have these. The only thing I would say negative about these is that they do take up a lot of space, and especially in Central Europe, it's really crowded. So we're going to be going through the tutorial. I don't know the game super well yet, so I can't call this in and of itself a tutorial, but let's just take a quick look at a country. So let's look at France. So France has a value of 2. That's the number of uncovered factories. And a key component of the game will be investing in your countries to get them to, uncover these markers here, which make them worth more factories. More factories, more victory points. More victory points, better chance you have to win. So you get factories from countries that you have the same government type, which is the shading of the boxes, and an influence cube in. Okay? So since we have both in France, we get 2 victory points from France. Okay? Alright. So we have occupation markers, more on that. We have tech theft markers, which allows the Soviet Union to steal tech. Pretty self-explanatory. Great job, Mike. We have army markers in civil wars, which obviously is a big, important part here. We have this red disc, which indicates that Yugoslavia and Albania has communist governments, or sympathetic anyway, to the Soviet Union, and the influence there means that this country is basically aligned to the Soviet Union. So this is Europe. So the training scenario omits much of Africa, much of Asia, much of South America as well. So it's really basic. So we have two force pools, and they're oriented this way. And one of the nice things is that there was a separate Soviet one, so the Soviet player doesn't have to try and read all this information upside down. And I won't bore you with the details now, we'll just kind of talk about it as it comes up. But the sides are asymmetrical, and some of the different information that they track is on here. Alright, so one last thing to show you before we get started is the technology board, which has the turn track all the way here, and the technology board. And I'm not going to go super in depth into it now, but basically just know that as you invest in research technologies, you'll move your tiddlywinks to the right, and you'll get these technologies. Many of these have a listed effect. These have game conditions as well. The Intel assessment produces a differential, which you can use to reroll dice. Over here on the side, we have strategic assets, we have bunkers, we have computers, we have tech theft. I don't understand all of it yet, but a lot of stuff happens on this side of the board, which means that this game, even though it's a simple 22 by 34, is sneakily kind of big, because you have this, and if you use one of the other player mats, then it's a little bit larger. Then you have a space for components, and of course the card deck. Alright, so that's a nice intro. Oh, and I wanted to say, stick around for the end of the video, as I am going to go over the 400 subscriber giveaway. And my cat's yelling at me, so I'm going to pause it, find out what she wants, and then we'll get into the tutorial. So thank you. Alright, well, she didn't tell me what was bothering her, but she did stop crying, so maybe she just wanted my attention. So, just a couple of things before we go through. I do want to say, I love the components. I think I said it before. These dice are really nice. I love the star and the hammer and sickle. I think that's cool. I love it when games do that. I love the wooden components. These are really nice. The counters are nice and thick. They're easy to pick up. They're easy to punch out. Yeah, the information's really clear. So, alright, let's get started. So, you have your scenario card, and this is the tutorial scenario, and I set it up as such, so that's our last look at that. There's like three or four different scenarios. They're all cool, I guess. Like there's like a couple of like short turn scenarios, and then it's just later starting points. Since the game isn't advertised 6 to 7 hours when you play it from the beginning, so you don't have, if you don't have the full time, I don't know, maybe you just play from the one of the later start years. Okay, so we're following along in the book, and this is starting on page, the rule book. This is starting on page 23. This is section 8. And if you're following along, when you make the deck of cards, to start, you are going to take, well, the instructions are on the back of the sheet, but generally you're going to grab all the cards for the corresponding turn number, a couple of money cards, a couple of other cards that'll tell you, what to remove, what to include, and just follow along with those instructions here. And the cards are really the heart of the game. She's upset again. I don't know why. Alright, so let's go. We're going to follow the tutorials example, so I'm not going roll anything except maybe a couple of things at the end. So here we go. The first card is Atomic Energy Act. And if you look at the card, the instructions are simple, right? So we're going to roll the die, and we're looking for a 4+ if there's no Soviet spy in the UK, or a 2+ if there is a Soviet spy in the UK. So in the example, the roll is a 5, so we just follow along with the effect. Okay? So we remove one influence in the UK. An influence are these cubes. Well, if you remember what I said before, now that we've removed the influence, we don't get the credit for these factories. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop down on the victory progress track. Now the victory progress track is in the force pool. So we're going to go from a 3 to a 1. Okay? Alright. And that's as simple as that. So we go to the next card, which is Popular Unrest. Okay? So in this example, a 3 is rolled. So both sides must place one unrest on an occupied country. So the unrest ones are the yellow ones. Okay. And occupied has a number of effects, but they are important for tracking unrest and for resolving civil wars. There may be other things to consider that I'm not super familiar with yet, but both sides get to place one unrest. So we'll pick up our unrest markers, and I'm just going to use these for now. Soviets select West Germany, which has a number of 4. That's the number of unrest you need to trigger a coup. And 1 goes into East Germany, which, since it doesn't have a number, a 3 is required. Okay. Alright, so then the next card is Berlin Blockade. And in this example, you don't have to roll the die. It's a risk-reward, and in this case, the Soviet player risks it and pays the price. So basically, they roll a 4, which adds 1 unrest in the Soviet Union, and I'm doing that off board, or out of frame. And then we remove any unrest, I would say. We remove any unrest in West Germany, which is this one. The occupation marker stays. And we add a single US investment token. Now the investment tokens they end up being modifiers to help you uncover the factories. And they're also modifiers when you fight civil wars. So they're good to have. So next up is the Soviet famine card. And they roll a 3. So, and one thing I want to point out is many of these cards say remove. So once the effect happens, you remove it and you don't play it again. Some of them say cycle, which means they go back in next turn until whatever event's on there happens, or it otherwise says remove. And you play every card in the deck each turn. So, the card commentary says they're not going to put any unrest in the Ukraine because they want to shoot to win the civil war there. So they place 2 more into the Soviet Union, and we're going to hold off on moving the camera. But basically what that does is when a money card comes up, and the money card is where you start to get to choose your actions, the Soviet Union is going to have to address that before they can do anything else. Okay? So then here we go with our first money card. Money, money, money. It's a US money card. So there's 11 actions to choose from, which is a lot, but they're fortunately pretty straightforward. Okay? So the United States chooses an option to place 2 investment. Whoa, that was scary. Okay, so one goes into the UK and one goes into West Germany. Now, once we've placed an investment, we can do something with it. In West Germany, we're going to make a trade roll to see if we can uncover this marker. All right. So each of these investments give us a +1, and you roll 2 dice, and you take the high die, and if the high die is a 6 or above, you succeed. All investments are removed, but you succeed. And in this case, we succeed. We remove the West Germany marker, which means that we recover the 2 victory points that we lost for losing the UK. We get those back from here. Alright. So now we're onto a Soviet money card, and I'm going to move us to the USSR, which is this space here. So we are in crisis. So we're going to have to address the crisis. Alright. So, we have 2 ways to do that. We can place investment or place spies and use them to remove unrest. So, we choose action 5, which lets us place 1 spy and make an influence roll, and either make an influence roll or place 1 investment. Okay, so we're going to place a spy, which is just from over here, the force pool. We'll place a spy, and we'll place an investment. Okay. So now we're going to do the mini action and remove the investment that we just placed and remove the unrest. So we're at 3. And then we're going to use the spy, and since we're using the spy in the country it's in, we roll 2 dice. Otherwise it can affect any adjacent by rolling 1 dice. So we roll 2 dice, and the result is a 5-1, which is good enough to remove another unrest. So now the Soviet Union is out of crisis, which is good. Alright. So the next card is a military export, and I'll just scooch up here. We have nothing available to steal from for trade. We'll touch on that at the end of the turn. So instead what we're going to do, and I'm going to slide us back over here, hopefully it's not too disruptive, is we're going to get prepared for the civil wars to come. So we can place 3 investment in countries that are worth 0 or 1. And here we go. Estonia, worth 0. Ukraine, worth 0. And then the last one will go into East Germany, currently worth 0. Alright, next card is war reparations. So we roll a die, and see how many war reparations we can remove, but unfortunately we roll a 2, which means we can't remove any of the war reparations. So if you look, there are 3 in East Germany, 1 in Hungary, Romania/Bulgaria, and then 1 in Austria. And those are all ones that the Soviet Union can remove to basically get free action cards. Alright. The next card up is the Red Army. In this case, the effect doesn't happen because we missed the die roll. But if it had happened, we could pay money, which is not something that we have really talked about, and it's not something that I really understand. I think basically what we would do is we would take our next 2 money cards to increase the conventional balance track, which is again over on the board to the side, which I showed us before. And it's actually where we're about to go now, because the next card is the naval arms race. Alright. So the U.S. has naval advantage, so it can place 1 investment in a 0 or 1 country. So it chooses Greece. And then it rolls a die. The result is a 4, which means the U.S. places a blue cube on the submarine track. And here we go. So, nuclear subs. Oh, that is not in frame. So I placed a blue cube here. A second blue cube will let us advance. The Soviets roll, and they miss their roll, so they don't get to advance on the arms race track. So next up is a Civil War card. And for right now, we each get, meaning the Soviets and the Americans, get to place a single unrest token. Or actually, as a result of the card, only the Soviets get to, and they place 1 into Greece. Alright, so let's come back to the main board here for a minute. I hope that's not too jarring. Okay, so Soviet money. So now that the homeland is out of crisis, we are free to act. And what we're going to do is they place a spy and an influence roll. So they're placing a spy into the United States to try and steal that tech marker that's there. And then we place an influence, try to place an influence into Hungary, but the roll fails. And then, once the card is over, we're going to trigger the spy. But neither of the spies are able to steal the Manhattan Project. And that's just as simple as looking at a table and rolling on the table. Okay. So then we have Nazi spies. And 1 spy goes into East Germany. So, as you see, East Germany is looking pretty crowded. So then the next card is Paperclip. Alright, so we roll a 2, which says the Soviets can place 1 cube into a satellite or space technology. So they choose Space Launch Vehicle, which completes it. So we remove the cube that I showed you on the track earlier, and we move the tiddlywink to the right. So now we come back to USA money. Alright. So It's going to exhaust one of its spies in the United States to send one of the Russian spies back to the force pool. So now there's 2 spies in the United States, 1 from each power. So then, let's go back to the strategy board, because the other thing the US is going to do is they're going to do some research. So they place a cube into the code breaking section, and this is one that lapses at the end of the turn, so you have to do it, you can do it each turn, and that'll give you 1 on the intel assessment. And remember that differential will give you reroll markers. But you do have to roll here, and on a roll of 3 or higher you get it. So in this example we hit the 3 or higher. So the disc moves up here. We take this reroll marker, we put it on the US side, and then since we fully researched the technology, 1 tech theft marker is placed into the tech theft box, which is up here to the right, and whenever you get 2, you roll to see if they go onto the board. Once they're on the board, they can be stolen. Anyway, that's my understanding of it. So in this case the roll fails, so we take them out. Alright, so let's come back from this board, and we are going to look at Egypt. Now, this card, Authoritarian Unrest, lets both sides place an unrest into an authoritarian country, and the authoritarian ones are the gray ones. So the Soviets choose Egypt. And the US will choose Sweden. Now these gray countries, once they get to 2 unrest, they resolve a coup attempt. And you roll 2 dice, and depending on what happens, there's a long thing on the cheat sheet here. The country can slide into conflict, the coup might be successful, a strong man could take power, but in this case here, they muff the die roll, so basically there is no effect. Alright, so next up is the Uncle Joe card. There's a lot of text going on there, so I won't bother to read it all, but what's important to know is that we take reparation markers off the map. So we take one here, and we take an additional money card and put it into the deck. I've already done so, but if not, this is the point in time we would do it. And then 1 unrest goes into the USSR, so it's back up to 3. And 1 unrest goes into East Germany. So they are at 3, if I've been doing this right. And then we roll to see if he dies, and unfortunately, or fortunately, he dies. So then there are 2 de-Stalinization cards that would go into the deck for next turn. But for right now, we're going to place a marker on turn 2 that lets us know that we won't roll for a leader next turn. Normally you roll on even numbered turns. And then we roll a die on the chart here, and I will just grab it to show you the player aid one Well, I can't. Oh, there we go. So we roll the die, and we get a reformer. So after the Stalin's death, a reformer takes power. And since a reformer takes power, we place 2 cubes into the Freedom and Reforms track, which is enough to move that up at the end of the turn. Alright. So the next card is a Civil War card. Now, the Civil Wars themselves, this is the second one. So we resolve any Civil Wars that are on the board, and there are 3. And I'm not going to get super into it, but what we'll do right now is we'll process them. So basically what happens is we roll a dice. The government and the rebels roll dice. The Soviets have an army, they have an investment marker, which gives them positive modifiers. So basically the army is going to go back to the force pool. The investment is going to be removed. An occupied marker goes in. The Civil War marker comes out. And the progress marker over here goes up 2. So we go to 4 and then to 1. And that also means that we get a hammer and sickle for making an entire lap around the track there. So now the score is 2-1, Soviet Union. Okay. Ukraine is basically the same result. So we remove these 2. And we remove the Civil War marker. And we move up here to 3. Now in Greece, on the other hand, there are no armies. So we remove the 2 investments. The government is able to remove one of the Civil War markers here. Now I'm glossing over a lot of it because I don't totally understand it, and we're just following along the example of play. But that is the status on the board. Okay. Alright, where were we? Just kind of zonked out there for a second. These 2 should also have those. Alright, so next up is the Tito card, which the result of the card, we add 1 Soviet investment in Greece and 1 in Hungary, and an unrest in the UK, or in the USSR. And the card is removed, which means it won't be played again. Next up is Joseph McCarthy, and as a result of the card, McCarthyism runs amok, which means 2 unrest. I don't have any unrest markers handy, so I'm going to use these cool things. Place them into the US. Alright, next up is spy agencies. So, with this card, the Soviets steal the tech theft in the United States. They are able to successfully use it. And what they do is they steal the atom bomb. So they move their marker up on the atom bomb research track, and they get all of the bomber tokens, and they go into the Soviet force pool. And one atom bomb counter as well. So those are all placed in the Soviet force pool. The US has a chance to roll for a free spy, but they fail. Alright, so we're running down to the end of the turn. Next card is research. And each side gets one research action. And based on the 5-year plan, the Soviets select farming. And they discover agriculture. Well, I don't want to say discover, but they research agriculture fully. And since that was the 5-year plan, they get a bonus victory point, which again pushes them to 4, which gives them a 3rd hammer and sickle. So the score is now 3-1. The US places a single cube on mainframe computers, which gives them a free cube at the end of each turn. Okay, now we have Soviet money, and once again, the Soviet Union is in a state of unrest. You can see the bombers that I placed there. So there's one spy, so we flip that over, and we roll, and it rolls a 3 and a 5, which lets us remove 1 unrest, so we're down to 3. And now we do the card, so we place 2 investment. 1 will immediately come out to remove unrest, and the other, I thought I had more investment markers punched out already. We'll go into Turkey. Alright, so next up is USA money again. So the US builds a bomber which swings the nuclear balance of power 2 in the favor of the United States, which gives the US player a star marker. And places 2 unrest in the Soviet Union, which means they are back up to 4 once again. Alright. Next up is the reparations card. This is the one we got from the Stalin card. So this is where I got confused, because the example says that there's another spy there, but there's not. We're just going to follow it anyway. So that removes 1 unrest, the spy, and then we place 2 investment. 1 goes into the USSR to remove unrest, so that will bring us back down to 2, and then 1 into the UK, which removes the US one that's in there. Since it is on a continuum, you can't have both sides can't have an investment counter in the same space. Reparation cards are 1-use cards, so they're set off to the side. And then next is popular unrest. So both sides can remove investments. The United States does not have any investments on the board. The United States removes the Soviet investment from Turkey. Next up is Israeli independence, and it's invaded. The result of the die roll says that it's invaded, so we placed an occupy marker in Israel, which is actually already there. I never removed it from the last game, and we placed a Civil War marker. Alright, last up is US money. And for this, the US places influence into the UK. Oh. Influence. So it places an influence. It fails the first die roll, but there is a special privilege from the presidential board. So we use the containment ability. That's a Truman policy, I think. To re-roll, which lets us place it into the UK. That'll move us up 2 now that we have those 2 factories back. Or actually, I think this is a little messed up because there's not supposed to be... Maybe there's supposed to be another investment card or something, because there's another action here. I don't know. Anyway, we're just going to leave it like that. Okay. So that's the end of the turn. So I'm just going to go through the end of turn phase quickly with you guys. So first off, we move the turn track from 1 to 2. Pretty straightforward. We even up the number of hammer and sickles. So basically we discard down to when each one side only has 1. So it's a 2-to-1 game. Now we come over to the Soviet force pool. We roll for 3 things. We roll for our 5-year plan objective. We rolled a 3, so it's going to be an industry. We roll for tech theft placement, and we rolled a 6, so that goes into the US. And then we roll for Western trade, and we rolled a 5. So let's see. We place this marker here, which means we can trade with the West when we draw that trade card, and trade for oil. Which has its own benefits. That's an important aspect of the game is oil. The United States needs to import it. Soviet Union can make its own. It's another place where they are asymmetric and distinct. Okay, so we've done that. So then the next thing we do is we would roll to see if we have a new leader, since this is the start of turn 2. But since Stalin died on the first turn, we don't roll to see if we get a new leader. Alright, so now's the point when we're supposed to add these 2 cubes here. But we also add a further 3rd cube because we're winning the game. Currently, we have more victory points. And since we have enough here, we discard all of these and we move this up. And this track has good things and bad things happening on it. Right now we get to remove 1 unrest. So we'll do that from here. And there's a Soviet diplomacy card that would now go into the deck to be used. If there were any embargoes here, we would remove it now. Now the United States rolls to select a new president. So we rolled a 5 and a 6, which means we would get these 2 abilities. And I'll just grab one of these, which means we can use either one of those. Each side. I missed the DRMs here. So it's going to be a -1. So we have a 5 and a 4. So it should look like that. Because we have 2 unrest in the U.S. We move this national debt over to the right, and now we have the capacity to deficit spend if we need to. We would also unflip all spies at this point. We remove the discs on code breaking over on the strategic display, since that's a lapsing one. So we no longer have our intelligence reroll for the US. And now we would go ahead and set up the cards for next turn if we were going to continue to play. But that is the end of the tutorial. And I really hope that was beneficial to you in some way. I know that this was probably not the best look at it, but it was a look at it. So I'm going to set it up for a 3rd time, this time the full turn 1, and I'm going to give it a go, and this will be a game that I will make a video for down the road. Another video for, I should say. Okay. So if you've made it to the end of the video, I want to go over my giveaway here. So this is for 400 subscribers. I have 2 games here. They're from my personal collection. To the best of my knowledge, they are complete. I don't anticipate that being a problem, but being that they are personal games from my collection, the first one especially has a little bit of shelf wear, but so here they are. I have a copy of the Z-Man Games edition of 1960, The Making of the President, which is a nice thematic fit for this game. There is some shelfware on the back. It's difficult to see, but it is kind of pushed in on the back, but otherwise it is complete. Oh wow, I got the cards splayed out everywhere and everything. Alright, so that's 1, and then 2 is Absolute War. Can't really get this into frame here. Absolute War, GMT Games. This one's in really good shape. It's unpunched, well, partially punched, I should say. I got an extra sheet of counters with this one for some reason. This one, this game, this is the game that was on my table when my table broke. And I don't know what it is, but mentally, like, every time that I started to learn that game again, I just remember the time that my table broke and I get upset and I don't want to play it. So I know that sounds a little bit silly, but that's where my head's at, I guess. So, here's what you got to do. Just leave a comment on this video here and let me know. I have a list of games here I'm going to read. Let me know which of these you're interested in seeing videos for. So I have, most of these are Compass Games titles. War for America, the Third World War, NATO, and Barbarians at the Gate. And then from Multi-Man Publishing, we have BCS Era Court. If none of those interest you, be honest, and tell me a game that you are interested in playing. Doesn't matter if it's in my collection or not. If it's something that I'm interested in, I'll check it out. Please, single map games or games that have a vassal module. I couldn't play like a huge 3 or 4 map game that doesn't have a vassal module. So, all right. A couple disclaimers, I guess. I'm going to send it as is. I will pay for shipping. I will ship international, but that might take a while. But anyway, that's my thank you for supporting the channel, watching the videos, of course. Anyway, that's that. And that's 2 minutes to midnight. So I hope you enjoyed. We'll do some more videos for this and other games in the future. And yeah, I hope you had a happy holiday, and you'll hear from me soon. Once again, this is Mike with Play More Games, and have a wonderful day.